It's amazing that we are in the year of our Lord 2022 and we are still talking about the YYYs. But man, it's not like they don't deserve it.
Into the sea, out of fire, all that burn.
Cool it down. The fifth album going to be released by the YYYs on September 30th might just be my most anticipated album of the year. The singles from the project are genuinely up there with my favorite songs of the year so far. So, what better time to recap the history of one of art punk's biggest names and one of New York's indie scene's biggest names. Today, we recap Karen O and the Gang, as today we look back on the career of the YYYs with their newest album just in front of us. Welcome to Pop Culture. Thank you for watching. We start with Karen Lee Ordzlek, born on November 22nd, 1978, in Busan, South Korea, to a Korean mother and a Polish father. They moved out eventually to Englewood, New Jersey, and she attended Oberlin College and eventually transferred to NYU's Tisch School of the Arts. It was here in the late 90s when she met guitarist Nick Zinner. Nick was born on December 8, 1974 in Sharon, Massachusetts, and attended Bard College for photography, where he played in a band called The Boba Fett Experience, who renamed to The Challenge of the Future in a fear of the lawsuit, which would eventually come by George Lucas. Nick and Karen became friends immediately and formed an instant connection, started living together as well, alongside members of the indie rock group Metric, who are best known for Brie Larson and Black Sheep. Their initial duo was an acoustic rock called Unitard, until one day when Karen O went to Nick, saying she wanted to shake things up and start a rock and roll group, and in her words, a trashy, punky, grimy band modeled after the art punk groups she saw at Oberlin. It is then they realized that they needed a drummer for this, which they initially recruited, but with them leaving without a name of theirs being able to be found on the internet, like genuinely I spent an hour trying to find the first drummer of the YYYs, and it was non-existent, they found Brian Chase. Brian was born on February 12, 1978 in Long Island, and in college at Oberlin, he was in a band called The Seconds while studying jazz, and is most famous for his traditional drumstick grip. At their first rehearsal, the band wrote a slew of songs, and their first gig was opening up for the White Stripes. They immediately became quite big in the underground scene due to their style of particularly Karen, who went by the stage name Karen O. They were a New York band, as the name is really evident of that, as it came from some New York slang according to the band. Karen was the star of all of these shows. She would dance in wild ways, in many ways to her own detriment. Like, there's a story of her in Sydney dancing off the stage and injuring herself, removing tour dates from the entire tour. And another very infamous thing, pouring beer on herself and spreading it into the crowd, which she said was probably because of how well behaved she was as a student. And of course, her outfits, which were designed by friend of the band, Christian Joy. They were able to release a 13-minute self-titled EP under the label Shifty, produced by Jerry Teal, a member of the New York punk group Boss Hog. They started gaining international recognition, playing South by Southwest, a US tour with Girls Against Boys, a European tour with the John Spencer Blues Explosion, which I never really knew existed, and even headlining a UK tour due to how successful the EP was over there. By 2002, many major record labels wanted to sign them. The band wanted to finance the album that they were going to make themselves. They wanted to do it on their turf and their terms. So they picked the low-budget Headgear Studio in Brooklyn. The producer for this album was David Andrew Steek from the band TV on the Radio, who would go on to produce every single album of the YYYs. He would also go on to produce the Black Album by Weezer and Scarlett Johansson's Tom Waits covers album. Yeah, don't ask any other questions about that one. The engineer, however, was Alan Moulder, who, amongst many critically acclaimed albums, engineered Loveless by My Bloody Valentine and The Downward Spiral. The album was released on 29th April 2003 after the singles Date with the Night and Pin, and was called Fever to Tell. The album was a minor success on drop, reaching number 67 on the Billboard 200, but the label wanted to release another single, but the band would not allow it. Now, multiple theories go into this, but my personal one is the song's lyrics and the theme were very personal, and the sound of this song was very different to the other songs of the YYYs, because if you want the sound of them so far, it's a really dancey punk group. Like, the whole vibe of the YYYs was a punk group that you could kind of dance along to, and the grooves were all underlying. It was a really cool thing, which was completely separate from what bands like The Strokes and the White Stripes were doing at the exact same time. But the song was released, and I think it deserves its own recognition. Yeah, chances are if you know the YYYs and you are at least sort of knowledgeable about music, you know Maps. The song started and developed from a rhythm Chase was experimenting with, and it seems that the song just sort of fell into place really quick, because there are only two known demos of the song. The first shows that the lyrics have always existed with the song. Karen says the lyrics originated from a love letter between Karen and her partner at the time, frontman for the band Liars, Angus Andrews. He is the main focus, with many believing MAPS is an acronym meaning Make Angus Please Stay. The second demo adds the one-note melody throughout most of the song by Nick, and then the album version also adds the melodic section with the guitars towards the bridge. If you're asking why I know so much about this song, yeah, it's because it's one of my favorite songs of all time. Like, if I had to make a top 10 songs list of all time, this is like a guaranteed lock for that list. A song so perfect in its emotion, and it gets heightened by one of the greatest music videos ever directed. It's such a champion in minimalism. It's just the band playing the song until Karen O is overcome by her emotion and breaks down. And those were real tears apparently, because Karen was waiting for 2.5 hours at the shoot, and she had only invited one person to it, and she thought that he wasn't gonna turn up. But then, just when the breakdown begins, Angus turns up to the shoot just before the YYYs are about to go on tour, and she just breaks. And it's one of those moments that caught on camera is just kind of unreal to me. It's simply perfect in its sheer minimalism. It's possibly the peak of early 2000s emo, indie, rock, and the post-rock movement that was coming out just in the 2000s. Fever to Tell was streamed really well. Their dance-oriented version of art punk was very different to bands like Strokes, or Jet, or Liars, or the White Stripes, but it still appealed to all of their audiences. They would continue with another hit in Y Control, which firmly placed them as one of the leaders in New York's indie rock and post-punk scenes. The work on the next album began after the end of their tour, but by 2005 they scrapped all of the recordings. In many people's eyes, it sounded too much like Fever to Tell 2. Nick Zinner said that he had heard so many bad second albums from bands he loved, and that they did not want to make another Fever to Tell 2. They brought back Steek and Molder, but the sessions were rough. The band would go on to call this the closest they came to ever breaking up. The attempt to change their sound put a lot of stress on the band, but they stuck together and gutted it out, and released Show Your Bones on 28th March 2006. If you want me to describe Show Your Bones, it's good. Nick is mostly acoustic for this album, and Karen O is still as great of a vocalist as ever. But yeah, I don't think anyone would call this better than Fever to Tell, despite both being good in really different ways. It's more because the first half of this album is kinda but the album did do well. It reached 11 on the Billboard 200. And then in 2007, they released Is, the EP, on the 24th of July. 5 unreleased songs just before the recordings for Show Your Bones and a short film. These songs were recorded just before they went to tour, and this is the only project of the YYYs not produced by Dave Andrew Steek. And you can definitely hear it. This sounds so different to anything the YYYs have done so far. This, in many ways, is the most R-rated the band ever got, and Down Boy from this EP has gone on to become a massive fan favorite. 2008. The band recorded their next album, and the sessions were unusual for the time. See, the music industry at the time was pushing for material to be written outside studios, because this would be limiting the production costs, hence making them a bigger profit. But according to Steek and Nick Launay, who produced the album, most of the writing was done in studio, and even the songs they took into studio were altered significantly. Launay said to Headquarters, Brian would play a lot of drum beats and we'd record it, chop it up, and then make a groove loop. Nick would then strum to it and we'd come up with an interesting rhythm part. Karen would listen to that and come up with a vocal melody, and suddenly everything would fall into place. The sessions had multiple inspiration breaks in between them. You can see a definite change from how the YYYs recorded before this and after this. The album was set to be released on the 13th of April 2009, but the album leaked online early on 22nd February, so the label decided to capitalize on it and release it on March 6th, 2009, and that was its Blitz. This sees the album go way more synth-oriented, but somehow without sacrificing what made them, well, the YYYs. The attitude is still there, the soundscapes on it are really good, and of course, Karen O is proving that she might just be the best vocalist of the 2000s. The first single, Zero, goes all the way down the synth rabbit hole. You cannot call this a punk song. In many ways, it's a synth pop song. And the emotion of this is like top quality YYYs. But the next single is something they are kind of infamous for. It kind of propelled it to number 11 on the Billboard 200, and well, it was. I mean, yeah, this is great. It's Heads Will Roll, right? It's probably the greatest Halloween song ever made. Like, I'm sorry, Thriller. Like, I get Thriller gets it. Like, and this is not technically a Halloween song, but like, if you're not playing this at Halloween, when exactly are you playing this song, right? This is insane. The iconic synth is sampled from a mellotron. It's sung in the perspective of the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. I don't know. I saw this in a Houston Press article, but I don't think it's true. But I could definitely see it being true, which is the weird thing. And of course, Karen, great performance, the synths, the drums, the music video for this is insane. One of the best music videos of the 2000s in my opinion. It's incredible. The YYYs were running on high momentum. Then this happened. So, in December 2011, Karen O said new music was being worked on and hinted at a new album, and on 14 January 2013, they announced the album would be called Mosquito. I'm very familiar with those. I'm Indian. There are probably a few in the room I'm recording in right now. The producers were again Steek and Launay, and James freaking Murphy from LCD Sound System. That's a big deal. Are we about to get like, oh, I don't know, like this synth pop, like maybe more down the It's Blitz thing, where we get like the synth fueled, filled sound it's gonna be so well produced. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be insanely well produced. The album was posted on Noisy's YouTube channel and featured a track-by-track breakdown of it on April 22nd, 2013. It reached number 5 on the Billboard 200. But okay, I've dodged it enough. What is this album cover? Like, it's up there with the worst album covers of all time. What is this? Like, why is the baby there? Why is there the 3D mosquito? Why have you chosen those colors? Like, it looks so Goosebumps, but like not in the way like Heads Will Roll was Goosebumps, but in like, you know how Goosebumps 2 was Goosebumps, and like what? Really? No, just no. Like just no. Well, at least the album's not going to be that bad. Oh, okay, the album was bad. Yeah, so Karen O described the album as extremely lo-fi, also adding we had a shitty drum machine, a shitty sample keyboard, tons of delay on the vocals. There's a real tone, character, and style to it. I mean, Like this is the only album of the YYYs which I can categorically say I don't like. Like a lot of people, I don't like this album at all. Three incredible producers, three incredible artists at what they do, and not one well-produced song. Like, is this some kind of joke? You have James Murphy's right there. James Murphy is right there. You can just ask him to produce you a song. That would be enough. Like that, you're gonna do that later on, so you might as well have done it here. I don't get it. And you know what's the worst part? This almost directly led to their hiatus. Yeah, so in December 2014, the YYYs said they went on a bit of a hiatus. This was according to Karen O. Which is sad. I mean, they've had a massive reputation. They've been pretty consistent until their last album. So, thanks for the memories, I guess. That was until 2017. On 2017, they announced their triumphant return to headline Sound on Sound in Austin, Texas on 10th November. They even asked us to look out for more news. That was until Sound on Sound got cancelled. However, in October 2017, they did release a remaster of Fever to Tell on vinyl and played a small series of shows to promote it. They also released a few of the demo recordings, hence we know the 2 recordings for Maps existing. Then came this year. In early May, they announced and teased new music. No, so they announced shows in New York and Los Angeles in October. But then came June 1st, 2022, when they released their first music in 9 years, with Perfume Genius called Spitting Off the Edge of the World. You know what? I'm just gonna let you guys take a listen for this one. Yeah, the video of the guy ascending from the casket, yeah, that's exactly what I'm feeling at this stage. This is pure synth euphoria. My god, those synths. That is Perfume Genius all the way, and I don't care because Karen sounds like an angel and the music sounds so grand and loud and emotional, and it's the most punk the group has ever gone, directly going after things like climate change and things like that. Like, oh, it's so good. It is insanely good. If only they could keep this up. And my god, did they. Because in August, they released Burning, which in my opinion is their best song since Maps. I mean, what is there to say about it? The synths, the guitars, the strings, my god, the strings. It's so amazingly in your face and loud and grand. That is what I've been wanting from the YYYs for so long. I want to be able to just get a warm hug from their music, and finally it seems like we are going to get it. I can't wait for this new album. And you know what this proves? 20 years into their career, they still have a hell of a lot left in the tank. And if this is a sign of the end or a sign of a new beginning, we don't know. What I do know is that the YYYs are certainly one of the most interesting bands to look at, because in many ways they're very underrated. As I've alluded to multiple times in this video, Karen O is one of my favorite vocalists of all time. The way she can just wail and hit the high notes and change between her voices and her emotions, it's just something that I don't think has been seen by a lot of vocalists, especially female vocalists in the punk scene, which is insane. And the antics of this band also add to the entire lore of this band. And in many ways, I am so deeply interested in what is there for their future prospects. So I think it's time we just wait and see. We'll just see if time can prove that the YYYs are gonna age bad or good. And I think it's already proven that their music has always aged really well, if it's not called Mosquito. So, we'll wait. September 30th, I will also be listening alongside the entire world for if the YYYs still have it, which in my opinion, I think they do. Thank you for watching this video, guys. Peace.